Council regular virtual meeting for July 7, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask that everybody turn off or mute your cell phones or other electronic devices. And I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, item 3, quorum. Rob, would you please check quorum for the upcoming meetings?
Certainly. The July 14th and July 21st meetings, does everybody plan to be available?
Rob, for me, if the 14th is virtual, I will be there. Otherwise, I will not.
Okay.
I had a question, but I'm trying to work plans around it to be there.
Okay.
Unless we have a full council, I'm not going to deal with the streetscape issue until all of us can be there. That's important enough for everybody's input and discussion. So we'll probably end up pushing that to August, it looks like.
Yeah.
But I'll try to get some of the the preliminary material circulated earlier, so you guys can be thinking about that in the meantime. But that one's too important to have anybody missing. So I'll see if I can dream up something fun for next week, or in the case that I can't, well, we may end up having to cancel that meeting. Okay, item number 4, public comment. This is the time of the evening where either written or people who are attending the meeting are welcome to share their comments with us. And Kristen, I believe you have a couple of public comments this evening.
Yes, I do. Both comments are from Teresa Lucas. The special events application process does not work consistently, and sometimes it doesn't work at all. Based on my experiences, there appear to be several systemic issues. Number 1, there is one application process for everyone except the Music Fest applicant, and the, in quotes, for everyone else, end quote, process does not support events like the Music Fest. Point 2, the village staff responsible for processing the special events application do not involve or update the village president on status or process issues when processing an application. Point 3, the villages, in quotes, for everyone else, end quote, application process is a black box to the applicant. A simple solution is to develop a single application process for everyone that includes updates to and involvement from village council members as indicated in the documented process. Recommendations include, point 1, using best practices such as titles/roles, not individual names in the process flow. Point 2, posting the process flow on the village website so that applicants know what to expect of them, and if they are responsible for more than submitting the application and answering questions about their application. Point 3, post a status report on all special event applications. Point 4, keep metrics, e.g. duration to process issues, types on the applications. No fancy software needed. Metrics can easily be tracked in Excel. Point 5, expect everyone to use the same process. That ends the first comment from Teresa. A secondary comment was received, recognizing that the Music Fest results in low revenue weekend for many West Elm businesses, excluding restaurants. How does the Music Fest benefit the entire business community? That ends the public comment. that was received via email. We also have members of the audience in attendee mode. And at this time, I will individually unmute microphones and ask if they would like to speak a comment during public comment.
Sure, thank you.
There is a call-in user on the phone. I'm going to be unmuting your microphone, call-in user. Would you care to make a public comment?
I think not.
Hearing none. Okay, the next person in the room is Carl. Carl, I'll unmute your microphone. Carl, would you like to make a public comment?
No, no public comment at this time.
Thank you. Laura, I'm unmuting your microphone
No, I don't
to
have
make a comment.
no comment at this time. I will comment during 8A.
Thank you, Laura.
Kristen, when you did not, I was looking at the participants. I don't think the call-in user was actually unmuted.
Let me try again. Call-in user, you're unmuted.
It still shows muted on my screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't take it off the customer's end. I'm sorry. This is Teresa Lucas from Good Grapes. I have a couple of comments. I think if the village has a process, everyone should be expected to follow that, and lashing out at those that follow it isn't appropriate. It's not professional. It's just not appropriate. Secondly, I was told that no applications would be processed until we were, as a state, at Winnetka, we're in phase 5, but yet that wasn't really valued for other people. So therefore, I didn't submit food truck applications, which cost me revenue because the food trucks generate revenue. And I think that when things go as wrong as they did with the North Shore Artesian Market, that perhaps those that own the process could look inward and figure out what went wrong with the process instead of attacking the person that followed the process. That's my comment on the application process. The Winnetka Music Fest is a separate question. I appreciate if we address those two topics separately.
Right. Teresa, just so you know, the public comment is a time for public comment. It's not a time for dialogue, and we'll take those items under consideration. I've already spoken to Rob about potentially setting up a study session to look at this process issue that we've raised so that all the trustees have a chance to think about it a little bit, and then we can come together as a group and discuss it.
That's fine. I'm confused on why I was asked to comment, but that's fine. Whatever you want to do. I clearly don't once again understand.
Teresa, we read both of your emails as public comment already. So your position.
So Kristen, why was I given a chance to speak? I just want to follow the rules.
Well,
and I clearly don't understand.
Teresa, you were given a chance to speak because you were an unidentified caller, and anybody who was in the virtual room has the opportunity to address the council. If you had been identified, okay, we would have said that we just read your emails and wouldn't have called on you, but you got a twofer tonight.
She may be confused, Chris, that this particular part of the evening is just for us to listen and not to respond back to her.
That's
like
correct.
You're saying, it's public comment, so it's not that we're not failing to respond out of rudeness. That's not this part of the process. It's just for people to tell us what they're thinking about or what they want us to focus on.
Correct.
Okay.
And Teresa raised some interesting issues, and I'll petition the council members to see if they all feel this merits a study session. My gut feeling is that it does, and get it on the agenda for future meetings. So,
yeah. Is there any background needed on why the question was submitted for the Winnetka Music Fest?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I'm going to put my phone on mute.
Kristen?
Yes. So next in the room, we have Mary. Mary, I'm going to unmute you. You have an opportunity to comment.
I have no comment. If I'm here for Hadley.
Thank you, Mary. Todd, you're unmuted. Do you have any comments?
I do not have any comments. Thank you. I'm here on behalf of the Hardy Radcliffe subdivision.
Thank you. That concludes all of the attendees in the room right now. And President Rentz, we have received no additional comments via email as of this time.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. Okay, seeing no additional comments, we will close the public comment session and move on with reports. I'll just work my way around my screen here and see if anybody here has reports. Jack, any report this evening?
No report.
Penny?
Yes, I would like to report on a really fun 4th of July reverse parade. I had the good fortune to be in the reviewing stand with Christina Cotto from the Park District. And although we might not have had a high volume of entries, there was a lot of enthusiasm with the entries that were there. Plus we had a lot of families driving through just looking for something to make the holiday special, and it was really great. I mean, some families drove through 3-4 times. Clearly the little kids really enjoyed it, and there were a lot of older folks that enjoyed it as well. So I want to thank the village and the Park District for doing it, because it was a great idea, and I think it was absolutely the right thing for us to do. So thank you very much.
You don't have the winners in mind by any chance, do you, Penny?
I don't even know who won, so I have no idea. My kids participated and had a blast. It was really fun. So I think something of this sort ought to, happen going forward. It was really fun.
Oh,
right.
Penny, were you in the shade, by the way? I'm just curious.
It was nicely set up under some trees, and there were
nice.
Up there. So yeah, it was really nice.
Yes, I looked over my shoulder. You look very comfortable over there.
Yes, we were very cool up there. Thank you. Sorry, you guys got stuck in the sun.
No, it was just the village letting them know what they thought of us.
True.
I can't
Let's put them in
comment.
reflective microwave ovens.
Okay, moving along here, guys. John, any report tonight?
No report, thanks.
Great. Andy, any report from the Wild West?
No report. All is well in the Wild West.
Bob?
No report, Chris.
Great. Rob?
Just that, along with the pile on to what Penny was saying, I do want to thank the village employees for making this really seamless. It was the parade was it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty darn good. So, and the whole staff, the fire department, police department did a great job. So it's really nice to see our village rally and how our people are. And Penny, my wife, is wondering why her entry didn't win. So she'll be calling you.
I think it had something to do with we didn't want there to be any nepotism or favoritism.
That's what I told her.
Yeah.
Told her.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
She was driving too fast, Rob.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But by the way, Rob, great floats.
Thank you.
They were terrific.
Okay. Moving along, village attorney, Peter, do you have anything for this evening?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Manager, Rob.
Yeah, I have a brief report regarding an event that began on Friday, July 3rd at about noon. One of our 3 15 kV underground tie lines serving Winnetka experienced an outage. The impacted lines originate at ComEd's Northbrook Substation and extends to Winnetka's South Load Center at Spruce near the intersection with Berkeley. The outage impacted 2 Winnetka circuits, a total of 1,217 customers, resulted in outages in several areas. After assessing the alarms and the system loading, the plant operator was able to perform remote switching and restored service to customers within 8 minutes. The cause of the outage was determined to be a cable fault on the ComEd system. And due to the location of the cable fault in close proximity to the switchgear, our switchgear also experienced damage. On Friday afternoon, Winnetka line crews worked in coordination with ComEd to isolate the village's cable from the switchgear, and ComEd completed the repairs Saturday afternoon. On Saturday evening, ComEd and Winnetka crews performed switching operations to restore the line to service at approximately almost 6 o'clock that night. And while the electric service interruption was only 8 minutes to our customers, Brian and his staff worked through most of the holiday weekend with ComEd to ensure our system was brought back to full capacity. And I want to thank Brian and his crews for their work, and also thank the plant operators who quickly and accurately performed the remote switching to minimize the impact on our customers. So I want to say great job to them. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I have a question. So given that it was a ComEd failure, how, from a cost standpoint, how does that work out?
Yeah, at this point, my understanding is that the overtime call out would be Village of Winnetka. It would be ours to bear. However, the cost to repair that area was ComEd's. To repair their fault was theirs.
And the damage that was done to our substation?
I believe everything was on the ComEd dime, but Brian will be jumping in later on an item to specifically address that question if you like, Trustee Lampier.
Okay. Well, thank you. I mean, given how hot the weekend was, I think there clearly are 217 customers that are very grateful. So thanks.
Yeah. Thanks to them. They really did a nice job.
Yeah.
They did. And I watched them out my front window working all weekend, and it was clear who the ComEd employees were and who the Village of Winnetka employees were. So, all right, Village President, I have one item. On June 23rd, I appeared before Judge Allegretti regarding our claim in the circuit court regarding the maintenance issues on the One Winnetka site. I wasn't there to represent the village. I was there to represent the residents of our community. At that time, I explained to the judge what how negatively impactful the poor maintenance was on the community, and the fact that we had to continue to look at these ugly buildings and endure the visual and the physical issues related to their non-maintenance on the building. The judge appeared to be empathetic and actually instructed the attorneys to ramp up activities because he seemed very interested in moving things along and assisting us in getting what we deserve, which is simply a well-stabilized building that doesn't look like a bomb shelter. And after that, we expected that in a meeting that occurred today, that we would start to see some action. Now, I was unable to attend the meeting, but Trustee Dearborn attended in my behalf. And I don't know, Bob, if you want to say anything about the meeting, but it sounds like the judge has been backing off a little bit on his initial fervor.
I think that, all the different constituents are well represented, as was Winnetka by, David was on the call and Peter's partner was on the call, colleague. And, there are apparently there are several indications of interest for the property. There's a bidding process, or there's a process to submit proposals that ends supposedly next Wednesday. And there's going to be a follow-up hearing the following Wednesday to sort of assess the proposals and I think he's most interested in whether the property is going to be torn down ultimately, or if there's an interest from any of the proposals in maintaining the property. And if there's interest in maintaining the property, then he would consider some of the maintenance and repair issues. But he said if it's going to be torn down, why would he compel the lender to put money into it? So 2 weeks from today, I think we'll know a lot more.
Great. Well, it's regretful that somebody chooses to purchase the property for redevelopment rather than adaptive reuse, that we will be stuck looking at that bombshell for probably the better part of the next year or so anyway.
Well, I think that's where, Chris, I think that's where Peter and Andrew need, we'll have to make the case against, that can't happen.
Yeah, well, what I'm going to suggest is that for the next hearing, I am asking all of you to possibly attend that meeting. It'll probably be a virtual meeting. And I'm also inviting members of the community who are concerned about this property to join in as well and help the judge understand just how negatively impactful this particular property is on our downtown. I had David do some research. That building constitutes 38% of the East Elm Business District. And it's unconscionable to me to let this thing languish for that long and leave it in the condition that it's in. So I'm putting a call out to the community to please join us a week from next Wednesday. Is that what you said, Bob?
I think the 20, it's 2 weeks from tomorrow.
2 weeks from tomorrow. Okay, well, I'll get the information and make sure I post it on all of the necessary social media, because I think the judge really needs to understand where we are in this whole thing and help us move this thing along so that we're not staring at this for another year plus in its current condition.
Agreed.
Will the village be able to send a notice to us of the Zoom or however we would attend?
Yeah, I'll make sure anybody, what I'll do is ask that they register with Kristen at Village Hall, and then we'll make sure we get everybody the information so we can all get on.
Okay.
So that's my report for the week, and we'll continue on. Okay, item number 6 is the approval of the agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove an item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Yeah, I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Trustee Coladarchi?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 7, the consent agenda. I will ask the village clerk to read the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Approval of the warrant list dated June 12th through July 12th, 2020 in the amount of $1,444,236.33 and approval of the annual outdoor seating permits.
Great. Thank you, Rob. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Coladarchi?
Yes.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier? Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Give her a minute.
I feel like I'm watching the Republican National Convention when Clint Eastwood was there.
Okay, Trustee Lampier?
Yes, sorry. I'm going to go get my power cord. About to run out of juice.
Most curious. I was going to ask you before the meeting started if you were plugged in, Penny, but...
Yeah, I know. I spent so long trying to get online, I didn't have a chance to get Sorry.
Okay. All right, now that we're back in order here, item number 8, ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number M9, 2020, approving a final plat of subdivision and variation, 165, 171, and 177 Ash. This is up for introduction and possible adoption. Community Development Director David Schoen will review this request to subdivide 3 lots into 2, which will also require a zoning variation. David, go ahead and take it away.
Good evening. Let me share the screen here real quick. So we have a subdivision request, and it has one variation, and I'll explain that variation in a second. The property consists of 3 lots on Ash between Glendale and Berkeley. 2 of the lots have homes and the lot in the middle is vacant. The owner of 1177 Ash also owns the vacant lot, and they would like to subdivide that middle lot with the owner of 1165 Ash. The properties are zoned R5 and the surrounding area is zoned R5. The proposed subdivision would create 2 new lots out of the 3 lots. The proposed subdivision, the lots comply with the minimum lot area, minimum lot width, and depth. It in fact eliminates 2 non-conforming lots. The 1177 Ash lot and the vacant lot currently, don't meet the minimum lot width requirement of 60 feet. They're only 50 feet. And the subdivision ends up creating 2 conforming lots. When we look at creating new lots, we look and see how the existing improvements comply with zoning regulations in the new lot configuration. I'll just focus on the new lots. You'll see here on the chart that the existing lots, there are 4 nonconformities that exist today. Under the new subdivision, there will only be 1 nonconformity, and that has to do with a minimum side yard requirement for Lot 2 or the 1165 Ash property. Side yard setback is dependent upon the lot width. Given that the lot width is increasing, the setback requirement increases. And so the lot for the lot and the existing home do not comply with the side yard setback that runs along the east property line. So instead of meeting the minimum requirement, in this case of 8.5 feet, the house is only 5.58 feet from that easterly lot line. So it's an existing improvement that requires the variation. So the Plan Commission reviewed the requested subdivision and unanimously recommended approval. The ZBA followed, looking at the variation that was required as part of the approval. And they also voted unanimously to recommend approval. There were 5 public comments in the form of emails. There were 5 emails of support for the subdivision, and those were included in your packet. Given that both bodies unanimously recommended approval with little discussion and not much public input, and that was provided was in support, we have placed this item on your agenda for possible introduction and adoption if you so wish. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for David?
Yeah, I can start out real quick if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I attended the Plan Commission meeting, and everything went pretty smooth, and I'm in support of the subdivision. The only question I had at the Plan Commission was, I think one of those houses possibly might have stormwater that might be on that vacant lot. I think David was going to confirm that, just to make sure that the subdivision isn't messing up anyone's freely approved subdivision or stormwater.
Yeah, we did confirm with the Public Works Director, Steve Saunders, and that vacant lot does not have any existing stormwater improvements, so it wouldn't interfere with.
Great, that's all I have, and thank you.
So by stormwater improvements, you mean in terms of any retention ponds, or what exactly do you mean by that?
I just want to make sure that one of those houses, I think the house furthest to the west owns that property currently.
Correct.
I just want to make sure none of their stormwater, the way it was permitted, wasn't on the vacant lot.
Oh, I see.
David just confirmed that it was not.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I didn't understand the question. Thanks.
Right.
Any other questions for David? Kristen, I wonder if you could promote both the applicants to video as well as audio, if they're here.
Oops.
They were here.
Well, their initials are here.
They were here earlier.
Carl and Laura.
I'm here on behalf of the Radcliffes and the Hardys. I'm their attorney.
There
Todd
you go.
Stevens. Hi, how are you?
Hi, the Radcliffes are here.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Penny.
Penny.
Yeah.
There we are. Oh, the Hardys are there.
Yeah, we're here.
You're all here.
Okay. Well, hi. I just wanted to say hi to you.
Start my video.
Welcome to Village Council. Thank you for coming out tonight. Do you have anything else you'd like? There they are. Would either of the two applicants like to add anything to what David has said?
Well, we've owned that lot for 30 years or so. And the Hardys moved in about 4 years ago, and we discussed asked them if they were interested in buying half of it, and they were. So we're just splitting the lot right down the middle.
Right. Sounds like a great idea.
Less density rather than a new house being built there.
Yeah, which would be way out of scale.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, my big fear obviously was creating larger lots, but I think what are they, like 80 feet each or something like that? So they're not excessively large to begin with.
It's what one is
75 and 85 after
Yeah.
the subdivision.
Right.
Awesome.
Right.
So does anybody have any questions for the applicants while we've got them up here?
No, this is great. I remember when you guys bought that 30 years ago. Man, we've been around for a while. Huh? So I think this sounds like a good solution for the neighborhood, particularly given stormwater issues and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay, well, first order of business is to talk about potential waiving of introduction. Does anybody have a problem with waiving introduction?
Chris, I support it. I think this one is good.
No brainer.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with the Planning Commission and Zoning Board, both unanimous. I think it's a slam dunk for adopt and introduction.
Yeah,
Great.
particularly since it's not proposed for development or anything. Right.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
Okay, well then I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number M9 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Vote. Bob?
I've got, just had to unmute. Trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi.
Yes.
That motion carries. Now, may I have a motion to adopt ordinance number M9 2020?
Still moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Lampier,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thanks, folks, for coming out tonight, and good luck on your subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
See you later.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hey, Todd. Bye, Todd.
Hello. Bye.
First,
Todd's up in Michigan.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, item B, ordinance number M10 2020, approving a variation for 700 Elm, Hadley LLC. Director David Schoen will also review this zoning variation request from the Hadley School.
Yes, so the Hadley Institute is proposing some new walkways that require variation. The Hadley Institute is located on Elm Street between Maple and Lincoln Avenue on the south side of Elm Street. The property is zone B1, multifamily residential, which allows educational and institutional uses by special use permit. Hadley, as the council knows, recently received approval for an expansion on their property. Since that time, they're proposing to add walkways that go from the driveway to the main entrance walkway, and from the main entrance walkway to a patio area they have along the east side of the building. This requires variation for impermeable lot coverage. As this table shows on the bottom row, the maximum allowed is a little under 15,800 square feet. They exceed that currently, and so their proposal would increase the amount even further above what's allowed. The difference in terms of what they're adding is 845 square feet. So the variation there may seem a little severe, but it's the variation from what's allowed to what will exist if this is approved. The ZBA reviewed the recommendation. There were no public comments during the ZBA meeting. The ZBA unanimously recommended approval. The DRB, the Design Review Board, reviewed the design of the proposal in terms of the landscaping and the walkways. One member of the public did speak. They were there for another item and spoke on this item in support. And the DRB voted 4-0 to recommend approval. So again, given that both bodies recommended approval with little public discussion, we've placed these on your agenda with the ability to waive introduction and to adopt. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for David?
I have a quick question for the applicant, but that's.
We'll bring them up in a minute, Penny.
Yeah, exactly, right. And just to clarify, this is an institutional use in a multifamily housing district, correct?
Correct.
Right. David, so explain to me, this walkway is actually a gravel walkway for the most part?
Mm-hmm.
And that gets classified as impervious?
It's included in our permeable lot coverage calculations.
As impervious?
Yes.
Right, or impervious?
As impervious.
Right.
But actually, sorry, I do have a question, which is, there are different ways to construct a gravel walkway, correct? That affects the de facto permeability of the surface. Is that correct? I mean, I know there's one that requires some engineering for which we give credit, but are there other more passive ways to, even though it doesn't count in the calculation, different ways to construct a gravel walkway?
Well, in order to consider it a permeable pavement or cover, it would need to be constructed with a stormwater system or a drainage system underneath it in order to receive the credit, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I got you. So
we used to give like a partial permeability credit on gravel, but then we did a whole study session recognizing that compacted gravel really is not permeable.
Right.
But that was my question, and I guess even though it may not affect the calculation, it sounded like the way it's constructed, and maybe this is a question for Hadley relative to the what the landscape architect described in the description in terms of creating a walkway, which would be different than a driveway, in a way that water would percolate through.
Yeah. But the only reason why I brought it up is I was thinking back to right before COVID hit, and we had that meeting on, was it the church over on Willow Road?
Correct.
And I was just kind of thinking along those same lines there, but then I think that was the actual concrete pavement there, if my memory serves me.
Well, they were taking out concrete and then to go with, but we didn't discuss the actual construction. So maybe this is something we just need to look into further, because at this point, I don't think it really, it's more of an interest in terms of how these things are constructed. I don't think it's really relevant for tonight's consideration. So
Okay.
That's what I was saying. 4 years ago, I think it was, Rob, you might remember, but we actually did a whole study session on this issue of gravel versus hard pavement.
but it was talking about driveways, right?
No, it was just in general how we deal with paved surfaces that are compacted gravel.
Right. Okay. It included some drives, but also pathways.
Right.
So it was kind of the full gamut of it.
So maybe I could review that. I mean, I obviously wasn't there for the conversation, so maybe I could review that on my own time. So won't take up any more time here.
Okay, Kristen, you want to promote all the folks from Hadley?
Yes, Mary is joining us.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Nelson. I'm a Winnetka resident, almost lifelong. And I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Hadley. And as you remember, this is our final phase of our renovation, this landscaping project. And the intention of the gravel pathways, just like in our building, you know, we've designed our building for low vision for our community, for our staff, and just as people can move independently with wayfinding in the building, this is the same idea in the garden, where people can find their own ways with the path, with the gravel, knowing where they should be walking and where they should not be walking. So the idea of the paths is a wayfinding guide, and we're building a lot of we're representing regions of Illinois with native plants. We're going to have kind of a woodland in the front. We're going to have a pollinator garden in the back. Of course, we're going to be filling in our sensory garden, which is on the side, on the east side. The sensory garden was originally built with help from the Garden Guild of Winnetka. They've helped us a lot. Also, the Hayford family, we've named it the Mary Lou Hayford Sensory Garden. So that's going to be rejuvenated with sensory material, stuff like that.
Sounds nice.
Mm.
Did you have questions for the applicants?
I was just going to say, as your across the street neighbor, I look forward to it. Like everything that you've done will be beautiful. I'm literally my bedroom and office down from across Elm Street, and so thank you for all that you're doing.
You're welcome. We want to make it more welcoming and with the neighborhood, in keeping with you know, the community. Our landscaper has done a lot of residential work in Winnetka and with a lot of members with the Garden Guild of Winnetka. So I feel very comfortable that this will follow and not, you know, it will fit in the community, in the neighborhood.
Mary, along that line, I'm presuming that you have spoken to the two neighbors along your eastern property line and coordinated with them.
We have a communication with all the Maple Street neighbors, and even I included the 711 Oak condo building, because you know we have a joint email, so we've been talking to them, and so they're aware. Yeah.
Okay, and there weren't any negative comments. I just wanted to be sure that we were hearing all voices.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments or questions for Hadley? Okay, hearing none. Let's talk a little bit about waiving the introduction.
I think that makes sense, Chris.
I'm fine with that. I would support that too.
Yep, again, with our lower boards approvals, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Great. Well, then I'll go ahead on that part of my cheat sheet then. All right, do I have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number M10 2020?
So moved?
Second?
Roll call vote?
Trustee Lampier,
Yes?
trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Apatow.
Yes.
Motion carries. We'll move forward then. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance number M10 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Dearborn,
Yes.
trustee Kripe,
Yes.
trustee Swerk,
Yes.
trustee Caladarchi,
Yes.
trustee Apatow,
Yep. Yes.
trustee Lampier.
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Hey, Mary,
Yes.
on this upcoming hearing for One Winnetka, could I count on you to join us as well?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, I'll make sure that you get that information when the time comes.
hmm
Appreciate it.
I know there's the 7-Eleven neighbors would be interested, and Maple Street too. You know who they are.
Yes, I explained to the judge, there was a lot of people that were very interested in this, so I want to make sure that he understands I wasn't blowing smoke, so.
Okay.
Great, I appreciate that help, and congratulations. Look forward to the improvements.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wait, I have a question. We voted to introduce. Did we vote? That was it? That was the only one we needed?
No, we waived introduction, and or did I screw up, Rob?
I don't know. I thought you said just a motion to introduce.
I think we did. I think we did it.
Yeah, it carries.
Okay, as long as that was the right, whatever. I just don't want to, have us
Yeah, no,
make
you
legal misstep.
you waived and then you voted to approve.
Okay.
But maybe I did, whatever.
Yeah.
We
Anyway.
approved it.
Yes.
Even when they try to make it really simple, I don't know if you guys can see this, but
In the 34-point type.
wow. I get lost easy.
Don't worry, I'm right with you.
I don't see any graphs or charts.
Yeah.
Those are coming, trust me. All right, we'll move ahead with item C, which is resolution number R44 2020. This is to approve a contract with Siemens Industry for the purchase of a 15 kV switchgear, and this is up for adoption. These next two items concern improvements to the Northfield Electric Substation. Resolution number R44 2020 relates to the purchase of new switchgear for the project, and resolution number R45 2020 approves an agreement with ComEd for a second transformer at the substation. And Brian Keys is here with us tonight to review these two projects. Brian?
Good evening, President Rentz and Council. Before I jump into the agenda report for R44, as some context on the substation expansion project, put together a short PowerPoint presentation that includes those graphs that you referenced that everybody's looking forward to hearing about. So on the agenda tonight is really what I consider two critical milestones in the substation expansion project. Kristen, if you want to move to slide 2, please. Expansion of the substation is being undertaken to address system contingency for the electric system sources of power. So we're developing a plan or improving upon the existing plans for loss of our largest power source or our interconnection point. And, this is a close reminder with Friday's event, we only lost one of the 3, but a reminder of that situation could happen. Also addresses having a spare transformer for our substation. As our peak load gradually increases over time, we're continuing to rely on the electric plant. And there is a time delay for the use of the steam turbines. We have seen extended maintenance times for generation equipment failures. And at some point, there will be a decision that's going to be reached where either we retire all or a portion of the generating assets. And taking this project on now gives us that flexibility. And finally, from a service delivery perspective, a lot of our customers already think the electric plant is already online immediately available. And so there's an expectation of on-service reliability to keep the lights on and minimize disruptions to our customers and the residents. Next slide, please. The 2020 electric fund capital budget contains $1.4 million. That's in the budget. tonight we'll be talking about the first two items, the purchase of 15 kV switchgear, which budgeted for a little over 670,000, and the ComEd interconnection fees we budgeted 500,000 for. At a subsequent meeting in probably the September timeframe, Giovanni will be bringing forward the transformer Firewall project, which was budgeted at 210,000. And we're currently on the street right now seeking professional services for the development of specifications for the substation transformer, which we're planning to bid at the end of the year, beginning next year, which will probably take almost a full 52 weeks to get from the time the council would consider it. Next slide, please. So the three power sources, for those of you that are to refresh everybody's memory, is basically the Northfield substation. It's called that appropriately so because it's located in Northfield along the transmission line, ComEd's transmission line right away. It's installed on forest preserve property that's leased through 2056. It was built in 1996. It's a single transformer that steps the voltage down from 138,000 volts on the transmission system to 12,470 volts. And that's how it's transported into town and distributed through town. It has a capacity of 30 megawatts. And as I mentioned before, there's currently no spare transformer in stock in our village inventory. We also then get power from what we call the ComEd Interconnects. That's 3 12 kV lines originally installed in the mid-1970s. And I will say at this point that just for clarity, the village has replaced their section of these lines previously. So our cable was newer than 1970s. This originates from ComEd's Northbrook substation. 2 of the lines terminate near President Rintz's house over at our South Load Center at Spruce and Berkeley, and one goes down to the power plant. Those cables are routed along Tower Road, and each one has a capacity of nominally 7 megawatts for a total capacity of 21 megawatts. Next slide. So the remaining third source of power is the electric plant. And just for a quick refresher, what's down there is 2 diesel units that were installed or purchased in 1978. They're nominally rated 2400 kW. They can be put online and in 90 to 120 minutes faster if staff's there. But if it's one person on a weekend, it's going to take longer than if it's a weekday when there's multiple people in the building. We get annual capacity credits from IMEA for our generating units. Meeting certain test outputs, and for the diesels, we get $184,320 on an annual basis. On the steam turbines, there's 3 steam turbines that are powered by, basically the steam is generated from 4 natural gas-fired boilers previously fed from coal, but now converted to natural gas. Coming up from a cold start, we're looking at basically an 8 to 10 hour to get all steam turbines to maximum output. Annual capacity credits for the steam turbines is 1.29 million. Recent rate study that we performed for those that didn't have the opportunity to set through some enlightening data points. Everybody was ready to throw me off the podium. The 2017 rate study did affirm, based on the current finances of the electric plant, that it does provide a significant financial benefit in keeping our ability to keep our wholesale power costs under control. But there is also the reality when you look at the age of that equipment that a good run will come to an end at some point in the future. Next slide, please. So this is a graph. So in the middle, our peak load that was set in 2006 is 40.1 megawatts. So on a peak hour demand, the village needed a little over 40 megawatts of peak load. To put that in context, today we're up around 32 megawatts real time today. So you see the sources. We got the ComEd tie lines on the left side of your screen, 21 megawatts, the Northfield substation 30, and the electric plant 30 megawatts. Previous village manager used to refer to the electric system as the 3-legged stool, and this is where that analogy came from. Next slide, please. Oh,
it's a good one.
So this is our actual and forecasted system peak. So you'll see on the left side of the screen, in 2006, we hit that 40,000 kilowatts, which is 40 megawatts. In 2019, we hit 35. We did bump up against the 39 in 2011 and 2012. And as I mentioned, we were at the 32.5 megawatts this afternoon. And I would expect tomorrow, the cloud cover doesn't come in real early, that we'll exceed 32 megawatts tomorrow. What you see is that we've got a long, slower growth. And I would say that when I started with the village, the concern about Northfield was a capacity perspective. Load is coming on. It's jumping 5 megawatts a year. In some cases, we need more capacity. As I mentioned in my introductory remarks, this is being taken on for system contingency. So we've got slower growth. If you look in the far at 2039, we're looking right now, barring sizable changes in our consumption, we're still going to be under probably 40 megawatts for the long term. Slide 8, please. So under a normal configuration with no generation, we're drawing power from the interconnects in our Northfield substation. The 30 plus the 21 gives you, we can basically handle 51 megawatts, and our system peak was 40. So in the short term, or even mid-range, that there's really doesn't appear to be any capacity issues. And we do have sufficient operating contingency with the power plant generation, but there is a time delay to bring it online. Next slide, please. So generally speaking, on a day when we're at 40 megawatts, the load kind of splits out that we're bringing about 62% in from our Northfield substation and 37% from our ComEd tie lines. And then we have the generation is typically offline and available for dispatch for our localized emergencies. And you can see again, the 4.8 megawatts is going to be available in a shorter period of time. That's at 90 to 120 minutes. And the power plant, assuming that we haven't been running and we're bringing it up cold, is going to be the longer 8 to 10 hours. Next slide, please, Kristen. So the contingency that we're planning for is you're looking for your loss of your largest source. And our largest source is that 30 MVA transformer at our Northfield substation. So on a given day, if we lose the transformer, trips, failure, lightning surge, then we're going to pick up the balance of system load. And we're going to start with using the interconnects. And that can basically, most of that can be done with our plant operator doing remote switching. Then we're going to start diesels to cover an additional 4.8. So really, we're pretty good covered up to about 26 megawatts. We're pretty fast response in 26 megawatts when everything's in service. It's from 26 going up above that where we got to bring the power plant online beyond the diesels, and we have a longer duration, which is at a balance of that 25.4. Next slide. So again, you can see this is just a restatement. Is basically that 21 to 26 megawatts is a 90 to 120 minutes. And when we get beyond that, we're looking at bringing the plant up. A transformer failure could go either way. It could be something that could be repaired in days, or if it's catastrophic, then we're going to be looking at several weeks to a year. We'd start with looking for an emergency portable substation and or a used transformer, and a new transformer purchase is like 40 plus weeks after drawing approval. So this is not an item that's commonly, say, available. There are used markets for used substation transformers. Next slide, please. So it's, my predecessors and the previous village councils planned for 2 transformers at the substation. Actually, the transformer pad already exists for the next unit. They brought 2 transmission lines into the substation and the high voltage bus work and switching. What's left is the switchgear, which includes relays and protective logic, the transformer itself, and cabling from the transformer to the inside the building to the switchgear. Since the time it was designed and put into service, engineering staff has also identified that probably need additional site modifications to reduce the risk of a single event impacting both units. Last year in the building, the clean agent fire suppression was installed, and coming later this year, as I mentioned, Giovanni will be presenting the design work to basically install a firewall between the 2 transformer locations. Because it's connected to the 138 kV system, which is referred to as the bulk electric system or transmission system, we've got to play under the ComEd rules. And so there's interconnection requirements, and there's a fee with basically connecting the transformer to their system. The project right now is on schedule to be completed in early 2022. I'm looking to move forward with the transformer purchase at the end of this year, beginning of next year, and that will run from 21 into a 22 delivery. Next slide, please. So truncated there. Basically, so the benefits of it provides for an in-service spare, long-term system capacity. So as we get that load growth, we need to be cognizant of the fact that our existing transformer is 25 years old. It reduces the need to rely solely on the power plant, gives us added flexibility during abnormal events like we saw on Friday. So we should have quicker restoration periods. And I guess the biggest one is it provides the council and staff future flexibility on potential decisions on reduction in basically generating in the future. If we don't add generating or we take generating out of the mix, then it reduces our system contingency level. So at this point, I mean, we're recommending that you consider moving forward with the Northfield substation, and wanted to take this opportunity to basically give those trustees that weren't in the long, arduous rate study or previous discussions on it, to give the opportunity to set the context, and be happy to take any questions before I move on to the actual switchgear purchase.
Have at it. Any questions for Brian?
I have a couple questions, and this may be repeating what I already know, but forgive me. So the first question is, what is the anticipated lifetime of the transformer?
So I think most accounting types are going to tell you it's 40 to 50 years.
Okay, so then the one that we have is about halfway through.
Half or a little over halfway through its useful life.
Okay, great. And then the second question is, and I can't remember if we discussed this, so I apologize. Given the weather patterns, you know, the increasing number of hot days and so forth, did our demand study consider the increasing temperatures and number of hot days and the temperature increase of the average hot day?
So basically, I think the trending I presented on the forecasted peaks is what IMEA is planning for the Winnetka system. And so they look at basically historical loading and then what they anticipate going forward. So I don't know what amount of weather they baked into that analysis.
Not that it's not terribly relevant for tonight, but it just might be interesting to know what their forecast is in terms of the analysis they made for us going out for the next 20 years in terms of relative to our historical weather patterns.
Okay.
Question for the future. No hurry. It just would be interesting to know, to make sure we're planning properly. Thanks.
Yeah, I have a question. Thanks, Brian, very much. That was very helpful. So halfway in the Northfield, for the Northfield unit, on page 6 on the three-legged stool, I guess I'm trying to make sure what full capacity we have. It's 30. I thought it was, I counted, we have up to 60 with counting ComEd megawatts?
So we have 21 from ComEd and 30 from Northfield, so we have 51.
Okay.
In theory, if we ran the plant at the same time, you could add another 30.
That's what I thought.
So in totality, but the economics are the fact that the village nor IMEA is going to want to run the power plant as a primary source of power 24/7. It's not financially viable.
Oh, of course not. No, I mean, I'm just saying in a pinch.
So in a pinch, that's the logic that the village / the electric department has used, and why we currently do not have a spare is we've got this 30 megawatts down at the lake. What I'm raising to the level is that our primary transformer is better than halfway through its useful life.
Yep.
The expectation of the community is not that they want to wait 8 to 10 hours, and the generating assets are getting older. And it's a reality that we're going to be faced with. I don't see this year or next year, but the reality is that there's going to be a decision where one or more units are going to have to be retired. And as those units get retired, we're taking away our contingency level. And it takes a better part of, we're looking at 2 years to put this in play. So I'm trying to get out in front of those types of decisions.
Right.
Now, for those people that are listening, or my staff that would be listening, is we're not advocating that we close the plant. The financials show that this definitely helps our wholesale power cost. But at a point where we have to make a difficult decision, I'm trying to position the village so that they have the contingency on the system to make the decision that's in the best interest long term.
Okay. The tidy, neat little $500,000 that ComEd wants, is that they're already connected right now? So is that negotiable? I mean, it's not like it's a new connection.
Well, so what happens is, and we can talk more about that in the second item. The first thing is the ComEd is kind of like the railroad. There's not a lot of negotiation. It's a one-way answer.
Yep.
And usually doesn't go in your favor. So basically, though, there is things that are going to have to happen. So yes, the substation bus is there. The 138 lines are in the yard, but there's going to be protective relaying on those switches. They're going to look at loads. They're going to see if our equipment tripped due to a fault, and they're going to want their dispatchers to know. And then putting it in service, there's going to be some fiber communications and some witness testing. That's all going into that. And it's actually, depending on when we get to that presentation, it's a number that's going to lie somewhere between 432,000 and 541,000. But it is, in my mind, not really negotiable. They're the only game in town, and it's a regulated entity.
I knew that part of it, but I thought since we already have something there, it might be negotiable because they're not bringing new lines.
Brian and I had a very similar long discussion earlier before the packet came out on that very topic.
Yeah.
Also, the village attorney was giving me some advice that it would be a long haul to try to dispute it.
Is there any, given that the IMEA contract is up in 2035, and it seems that there will be at a decision point of having to determine whether or not we replace equipment or retire the power plant at that time, is there any sense to using, to getting a used transformer, which I know you had in the materials, given that a new one has a lifespan of, say, 50 years, is that even a sensible possibility in order to save money?
So when buying a used transformer is like buying a used car. You're going to take you take what comes with it as far as what fault duty, what things that transformers experience, what overloading. There's secondly, as I'm looking at it, is I mean, to be candid, I think when our contract ends, the steam generation is probably going to be done because it's difficult for IMA to dispatch it in the current electric power market because it's not quick. They're looking for the diesels, the combined cycle units that can come online quickly versus, trying to forecast 8 to 10 hours out and have us start boilers. And then the second part is replacing. I mean, if the council wants to go that route for replacing generating, but I don't see the full-on replacement of the 25 megawatts in the future of the electric plant. I think the diesels are there for two reasons. One, they're quick start. They're going to be required to back up the water plant, and they do provide us some stormwater backup support to the stormwater pump station at Hill Road.
Right.
So from a transformer perspective, I would really only want to pursue a used one if we're in an all-out bind. I mean, then we're going to end up with two transformers with half-lives.
Right.
Any other questions for Brian on this issue? Penny, you were asking about the weekend thing before.
It's an appropriate time to talk about it. First of all, thank you so much to you and the staff for spending your holiday weekend working on the outage issue that was caused by ComEd's cables. So I was wondering, relative to the damage that was caused to our equipment because of ComEd's issue with their cables, how is that cost borne?
So the actual switchgear was the metering switchgear, and it's owned and maintained by ComEd. Our cables come into that.
Yep.
And after it was isolated and examined, we had no physical damage to our cable. We did spend resources on overtime to support isolating it, and cleaning our cable terminations. The way the allocation of cost goes is we'll each carry our own. And it goes both ways. There's been events where we've had trouble or we had to have switching performed to isolate equipment on our system, and ComEd carries that cost on their own and does not bill us for it.
Okay.
So in this case, because none of our equipment was damaged, we'll cover the payroll costs and incidental material for cleaning it up. It will generate a longer-term discussion with ComEd on the replacement of the metering cubicle, and probably the longer-term discussion on the replacement of their cable. Based on what I saw, it's clear that that cable's not from the current generation.
Interesting. Good. Okay. Well, thank you for taking that on. And again, please tell the folks who worked over the weekend, thank you very much.
I will convey it to them. And like as Rob mentioned, I'd like to really recognize the plant operator that was on duty, made a very appropriate assessment of the alarms, took the time to focus on it, and took the appropriate action. So it was a timely response. And I could say that probably the first person that reached out to me was one of the people on this conference call related to his house being out.
Can't imagine who that is. Well, again, thanks a
I
ton.
was being helpful.
You were helpful.
I was just being helpful.
All those household supplies.
It was Christmas lights that were plugged in still.
Yeah.
All right,
July.
Brian, part two.
Part two. Okay, I'll move forward then if everybody's okay with that discussion. So resolution R44 is oh, where'd we go? Kristen, there's no PowerPoint for this part. This one's just verbal. So it's on the agenda packet, page 149. So we went out for bid for switchgear for the substation. This would be inside the building. It was a formal bid for 15 kV metal enclosed switchgear, the circuit breakers that go inside it, and protective relaying. And then the successful vendor is also going to require commissioning and training upon installation. The switchgear for the project, there's two pieces to this. There's a technical component, so the electrical ratings that we're looking for, but also the physical layout. So the building's already in place, in service, and we've got to connect to an existing electrical substation, switchgear, excuse me, and we've got to use the existing floor penetrations, a conduit that's already been plumbed into the building. So we worked with the consulting engineer, designed a spec that said the breakers have got to line up over these respective slots and have got to connect to that existing switchgear. So it'll incorporate 7 vertical metal sections, and to give you a perspective, they're each about 3.5 feet wide and 7.5 feet tall. There'll be 6 sections that have a physical breaker. So, you know, in your breaker box of your house, you have the little 120 breaker, maybe a 100 amp breaker. This will be a 15,000 volt breaker with a 2,000 amp rating. And it's a vacuum bottle. So, I mean, you go from this size to this size. I mean, graphically significantly bigger. The breakers, one will be connecting to the transformer. One's going to connect to the existing bus that's already there. There'll be a connection to one of our existing load center, which will move over from the existing transformer, and the rest will be used to serve future load to Winnetka. The bid document that you use spends, if you looked at through the little eye chart with all the logic drawings, you'll see there's basically relay protection built into this. ComEd's already had an opportunity to provide initial review comments on that. And then there's an option during our speccing process, one or more of the vendors thought perhaps they could actually incorporate a seventh breaker, and that was intriguing. So we put out not to see if that was actually technically feasible, and we'd get responses. And after looking at the responses and the basically unintended consequences in shifting in connections, it was viewed as non-feasible. So we went with the original option. COVID has impacted the bid processes and the ability for people to respond because they're trying to get things done from home like everybody else. So the bid deadline was extended from April 3rd to April 17th, but we did get 6 bids. 3 of them were from OEMs that we were hoping to receive bids from, and 3 were from people I would call like firms that will buy a breaker from one of those original OEMs and repackage it in their own equipment. Bids range from $431,105 to $731,824. And on page 259 and 260, you'll see that Strand, which was the engineering entity that the village retained to help them with the specification process, is a firm that basically Siemens Industry Their bid in the amount of 431,105 conforms both technically, but also can comply with the physical requirements. It's considerably lower than the original engineer's estimate of $525,000. So the resolution before you, R44-2020, would authorize the village to enter into a contract with Siemens Industry for the purchase of 15 kV switchgear for the Northfield substation in an amount not to exceed $431,105. And then as a footnote is, while that seems like that is a very attractive price, and I'm very happy with that bid result, is that the budget, even though it was 670, there's another piece of the budget coming. So there will be a mechanical contractor that will take it from the semi-trailer when it arrives at Northfield and basically move it into the building, assemble it, and do all the wiring. And I'm saying the low voltage relay wiring. So we're currently estimating that work scope at about $165,000. If the village council gives approval to move forward with the switchgear, then we'll move forward with securing that mechanical party and getting a contract in place with them, which would obviously come before the village council at a later date this year. And then with that, I'll take any additional questions as you consider adoption of the resolution.
Questions for Brian?
I'm having flashbacks from the rate study. Sorry.
It was that enjoyable, I know.
Okay, well, good. No more discussion. Sorry, Brian.
That's okay.
You heard from me last week, so.
You heard it so well before, we don't have any questions.
So, Brian.
Yeah.
Let me get to my script here. Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and see if we can get this done in. First off is, is there anybody in the audience out in the world who might want to weigh in on this? Public comment?
There is a new call-in user, so let me unmute and see if there's any comments. Call-in user 2, you've been unmuted. Is it showing unmuted on your side? You may need to unmute your phone.
By the time we get done with this technology, we'll be able to get back to Village Hall and actually do some real business.
I'm going to move to call-in user 3 and unmute them. Hello?
Doesn't sound like there's any comment there.
No comment.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. All right, we'll move forward then. May I have a motion to adopt resolution number R44-2020?
So moved?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Lamfair?
Yes?
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Sorry, Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yeah.
Trustee Caladarchi?
Yes.
Motion carries, thank you. Then we'll go on to resolution number R45-20. May I have a motion to adopt resolution number R45-2020?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Lamfair?
Yes.
Trustee Caladarchi?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
That motion carries. Brian, thanks again. Appreciate all your input, and thanks for sticking around. And I know you probably could have done this from home as well, but
Thank you. And I appreciate the comments related to the outage restoration, the support for the Northfield expansion project. I think it sets a good tone for the future of the electric system.
sounds great. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, moving along. Item 9, old business, we have none. New business, we have none. I did want to just mention something to you guys, as long as I have everybody in the room. I've been really resistant to bringing up meaty items and a lot of the process issues that we're so normally used to engaging in, both as a council and in some of the lower boards. And I think I mentioned it once already, but we are bringing our first plan development application through the process through virtual meetings. I'll be the first to say I'm a little uneasy about it, but I think we have to get used to this if we're going to keep things moving forward. I know that there's always been a concern in this community about transparency and access to public dialogue, but at the same time, we're going to have to figure out how to make this work for us, because given what's been going on in the last couple of weeks across the country, there's no guarantee we're going to be able to get back into the room with the public in a normal way for quite a bit of time yet. So I am going to start opening the floodgates here a little bit, and we are going to start to see more than just the necessary business stuff on these agendas. And we have to think a lot about how we're going to approach study sessions, because usually those are pretty engaged conversations. At least I like to think they are. And how we accomplish that in this format, I'm still not sure. But we're going to give it a try and try to really start taking advantage of technology available, and see if we can get business moving again at a little better pace here in the community. So anyway, that's that. And if you guys want to talk to me about it offline, just give me a call. I'd love to get some ideas or your thoughts on this individually, just so I can make the best decision I can relative to how we structure upcoming agendas. So we'll move forward on item 11, appointments. I do have one appointment this evening. May I have a motion to reappoint Wes Bauman to another full term on the Board of Fire and Police Commissions?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Caladarchi?
Yes.
Trustee Kripe?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Sure. Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Andy, thanks for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Your change of scenery with the beams, those beams above were kind of a dead giveaway. So
Yeah, and it's going to get down to 34 degrees here on the mountain tonight. So
I'll take it.
wow. We're a little jealous.
I will take it. That's no weather.
It's going to get down to 34 degrees centigrade here.
Yeah, I suspect Andy needed some alone time, so this was probably a good excuse. All right, well, with that in mind, we'll move forward. There is no closed session this evening, so I'll move forward to adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Lampier?
Yes.
Trustee Swerk?
Yes.
Trustee Caladarchi?
Yes.
Trustee Kripe?
yes.
That motion carries. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody, and we might see you next Tuesday pending subject matter.
Oh, this is what my dog through the entire meeting was chewing on this at my feet. So I apologize if there were weird noises coming around.